All right. So today on Searching for Happy, I'm with my new friend, Matthew Ferry. And Matthew, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast.
Yeah, it's fun to do these kinds of things and help people out and give them some ideas on being happy.
Yeah, man. Well, Matthew, man, you have an impressive background. You're a spiritual teacher. You're an author of Quiet Mind, Epic Life. You can get that on Amazon. And you've created a couple things. One that really piqued my interest. You're the creator of the 30-day opinion diet, which I think is absolutely brilliant and it's so much needed um, in our times right now. And you also created the Rapid Enlightenment process. We'll talk about all those. But tell us a little bit about how you were drawn to this field to help people. What got you started? Tell us a little bit about your backstory.
Aha. Well, I come from a personal development family. My father's mentor was a man named Earl Nightingale, who damn near started the industry.
Sure.
Nightingale's influence and mentor was a man named Napoleon Hill, who wrote a book called Think and Grow Rich. And so I come from a lineage of people who are in the industry of supporting others and being successful, being happy, being effective, etc. The family business that I come from was a real estate sales training business. And what I found was my top clients, which is kind of where I spent my time focusing, were making hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe millions of dollars a year. And they were still miserable and angry and frustrated and cynical and filled with anxiety and pissed off at the world.
Yeah.
And that was a little bit of a conflict because they actually thought that level of success, like changing their financial world and their circumstances, would lead to more happiness. And truth be told, Ray, I thought the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And achieving my own levels, measures of success, and then still being filled with anxiety and anger and frustration and moments of hopelessness, etc., really did change my perspective and get me thinking in a new way. And
Hmm.
so that was probably, the 90s. And in the 2000s, I really started to change my focus. In 2006, my mind went completely quiet for the first time, not in meditation. Uh,
Hmm.
and that was a surprising and startling thing because suddenly you become aware of the components of thought and emotion that create negativity. And
Hmm.
I've spent, since 2006, essentially studying and working to understand how do we stay in a peaceful, joyous state, no meditation required.
That Well, if you have an answer for that, sign me up. Because
I do. Yeah.
so let's go back. Like you said, in 2006, you had an experience where your mind went silent. Was it just, did that happen out of the blue, or was it a
Mm,
were you working on a process
I was.
and
Yeah, I was actually deeply, deeply involved in meditation at that time, and I went to Tibet with my teacher, and we meditated for 17 straight days.
okay.
And my mind started to get progressively quieter in the meditative process, and then all of a sudden it went quiet completely. And then I got home, and as soon
Yeah.
as I got home, it fired up again and started going berserk, filled
Yeah.
full of opinions and comparisons, and this shouldn't be that way, and blah blah blah. And that was very disconcerting because you can't meditate at the Thanksgiving table.
Yeah.
You can't
Yeah.
meditate when your kid is throwing a temper tantrum. And while mindfulness was certainly beneficial and an important step in my process, mindfulness was unreliable,
Mm.
and my biology didn't give a rat's ass about my mindfulness practice. My biology would just spike with adrenaline, and here comes the negative thoughts and the anger and the frustration, all the things that we are hoping on our journey to happiness to release.
Right. So what did you okay, so when you returned, you had a profound experience. And you returned, and immediately you just felt all of the anxiety and the frustrations come back
Life.
into your body. I can relate to that as a guy who I lived in New York City for many years, and I remember stepping out for a couple weeks or a month, and you just kind of your adrenaline would come down. But anytime I returned into that city, it would be boom right back, and it was almost like this survival adrenaline that's required to live in New York City, because it's a fast pace and intense place to live. And I'm guessing where you're at very similar out in California. So,
No, not really. I mean, I've lived in the suburbs pretty much my whole life. And when I returned from Tibet, I returned to a guard gated community that was very idealistic in its layout and how we lived, but the mind doesn't care. The mind is a survival system. So
mhm,
the mind comes back because it experiences threat, because that's its job.
yeah,
New York City is certainly an enhanced version of that. I
yeah,
go every year to meet with my clients on Wall Street, and it's hardcore in New York City. But all you have to do is be alive, pretty much, and you're going to experience some kind of threat state, even though today that's a mismatch to the life that we're living for the most part.
yeah, yeah. So, so through this journey that you've been on, and when you returned, you realize that you, meditating and mindfulness wasn't the full answer
Yeah.
to what you were looking for. So then where did you go from there?
I love both meditation and mindfulness. And I love to make meditations. I'm a longtime songwriter and music producer. And so it's really fun for me to make inspiring meditations with music. But you can't rely on meditation to maintain your peace and your flow when you're out in daily life. Mindfulness is it gets you close. It'll get
Yeah,
you there, right? It's like it'll get you close, but then you get knocked off your rocker on a pretty regular basis. And it turns out you have to go farther. So in the Rapid Enlightenment process, I distinguished that there were four components that were required to maintain peace, joy, flow, certainty, confidence, trust, inspiration. And the first one is to understand the mechanism of the mind. I call the mind the drunk monkey. That's my
hmm,
little nickname for the mind. And the drunk monkey has unconscious reflexes. So it's like you're just cruising along, do 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 do, and then all of a sudden something triggers the mind, boom, and next thing you know, it's going off and it's judging that person, or it's judging you, or it's forecasting the negative, or so many things,
hmm,
fearing failure, fearing embarrassment, feeling like it's not fitting in, feeling like a fraud. There's all these different
yes,
unconscious reflexes.
yep,
And I spent a lot of time really working to, quote unquote, be mindful of those things. And I would still get whacked by the drunk monkey and go spiraling into, some negative future prophecy that the drunk monkey literally thinks it's psychic
yeah,
and it can predict the future.
hmm,
Then I had to dig deeper. One of my mentors, a man named Dr. David Hawkins, who wrote a book called Power versus Force. He
yeah, I
talked
love
about
that book.
Me too. He talked about the idea that you must essentially remove your motivation for thinking. And I thought that was a very interesting idea. And of course, he didn't talk any more about it other than making that statement, which was a little tragic. And I used in his case, he came up with a muscle testing methodology to discern levels of consciousness, which I thought was interesting. I began to use my muscle testing prowess to investigate consciousness and try to discern what was the motivation for thinking in the first place. And that
Hmm,
led me to the second thing in the Rapid Enlightenment process, which is the hidden motives to survive. And it turns out all of us have this. It's almost like the software that our consciousness has. And that software produces pretty standardized ways of thinking that are survival oriented. So you have greed, grudge, hatred, victim, illogical rules, humble, traitor, pride, resistance, and lazy. Those 10 things are in the unconscious. They're back here. And so when you start to notice that motivation is present, it then creates a whole motif of thinking. And the thinking itself, one, is unasked for. You didn't ask to think about this stuff. It's just happening automatically. And two, it generally is not producing the feeling of peace.
Mm-hmm.
So step one, you've got to recognize what the drunk monkey is and its mechanistic nature. Step
Mm-hmm.
two is you recognize the motive for the thinking, and you essentially make a new decision to change the motivation. And then you go into action. And the action part is, one, to connect with enlightened perspectives. So enlightened perspectives essentially assume that all is well.
Mm-hmm.
Now think about that. How many perspectives do you have that assume that all is well? I suspect it's less than 5.
Sure.
And yet, the more you connect with the ideas that imply the unknowable idea that all is well, because it is unknowable, it's not provable, it's
Right.
contextual in nature. The more you connect with those ideas, the more secure you feel, the less your mind needs to talk. Your mind talks as a security process. It's
Yeah.
there, it's talking to help you navigate. So I have distinguished a whole series of thoughts and contextual frameworks that assume that all is well. And when you connect with those, it progressively causes your mind to go quieter and quieter and quieter. And then the last component is a skill. And that is, you and I, yesterday, for example, I had us on the schedule and you didn't. And it was a mistake that my assistant had made. And the natural response would be to be like, ugh, I was supposed to be on this thing and I wasn't, right? The natural response is to have some sort of conflicting emotion because the expectations were broken. But the skill set that I've developed, called recontextualization, is to essentially change the framework and recontextualize to assume that all is well. And the moment you do that, it's like, and then the mind
Yeah.
doesn't talk because there's no threat present.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's almost like, yeah, recognizing that, it's like, when we become frustrated and, when things don't turn out the way that we want them to, um, and we don't feel well about it, you can feel it in your body. It goes back to that old saying, there's a different way of seeing it. But even the Buddhists use, there's a different way of understanding it. If you're not seeing it, if you're not seeing it, perceiving it correctly, it's going to cause conflict and internal pain. But there's another way of understanding it. There's another way to look at it. And it's almost like being mindful enough to go, okay, so how can I look at this differently? That's going to remove this conflict and anxiety that I'm experiencing in my body, because there is a different way. But that requires work too, right? It requires,
Happiness is a skill.
yeah.
It's not a condition. It's not a situation. You're not going to change the environment in order to be happy. You can try, and there's an impact if you change the environment, there, of course. But long-term authentic happiness is really a skill set that you practice. And if you're committed to it, then you can achieve happiness. And ultimately, you can achieve what has been traditionally called an enlightened state, where you experience a pervasive oneness. And that
Mm-hmm.
oneness is not necessarily special or even spiritual, to be honest with you. It's actually just an incredibly rational way to experience your life.
Mm-hmm. Is there a routine that, like, that you go through every day or every morning, to practice um, the steps that you need to obtain and sustain a level of peace and joy in your life? Is there a routine that you've developed?
Yeah, there is. I wrote about it in my book, Quiet Mind, Epic Life, and I
Okay.
actually developed like backing up for our listener. um I'm not a scientist, though I am, right? But I'm not formally practicing
Sure.
scientific method. But I've coached over 10,000 people since 1989, and that process of the feedback loop of supporting people in achieving what they want to achieve has been very eye-opening. And one of the things that I do is give people like 7-day practices or 10-day practices or 30-day practices. In the back of my book, there's a 23-day little game plan. Essentially, every day you spend 2 minutes, read the little game plan, and you go play with it. For example, one of the things that I talk about is to practice total and complete acceptance of all situations, all people, including yourself. Now
Mm-hmm.
that's a tall order, but then I also give some ideas and some examples and some enlightened perspectives that might help. Another one is to practice going on an opinion diet, which you and I thought we could focus people on, because I think going on an opinion diet is actually, while it's really difficult to do, it's incredibly beneficial and will create a lot of happiness and joy and flow as we go into this new year.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, that's a great. Let's walk into this opinion diet because I'm interested in learning for that. Definitely that. So where do we
Well,
start?
Well, I think we start with a little bit of background.
Okay.
And opinions are really just confirmation bias, which is like a tendency to interpret new evidence as confirmation of our existing beliefs and theories. So the drunk monkey in our head relates to opinions like they're true,
Mm-hmm.
but our opinions are not true. Opinions ultimately are really just the source of negativity that we have. So opinions, I would say the source of suffering really is opinion. And if you set your intention to transcend and release your opinions or find opinions that are empowering or inspiring or feel good, your life's going to get better, because what you resist will persist.
Mm-hmm.
What you accept will transform.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out there are no actual jerks in the world
Mm.
until you show up and label them.
Yeah, yeah.
And that your label essentially creates the negative experience for you. So, for example, polarizing opinions, they really create long-term negative impacts on our reputation. And that limits your friendships, it damages your families, kind of reduces your opportunity set and your prosperity. So going on an opinion diet is actually really, really effective, because according to the American Institute of Stress, when you have negative attitudes or feelings of hopelessness or helplessness, it can actually create chronic stress, and chronic stress can be extremely debilitating and reduce your health. So it's
Yeah.
actually really healthy to practice going on an opinion diet and
Yeah.
reducing stress. So there's 4 steps that I recommend. The
Okay.
first step is to stop commenting on government officials
Yeah.
and their decisions.
That's
And, and
great.
the and the thing is that you voted or you didn't. If you didn't vote, then definitely shut up. But if you did vote, then you basically said, I'm going to back this particular person. Then if you want to get more involved, then get more involved. But commenting on Facebook or at the dinner table or with your friends and family and complaining and moaning and pretending like you're some kind of authority actually undermines you and your relationships. So you
Mm-hmm.
let go of, just for 30 days, just to see what happens. You don't comment at all on government officials. The second,
What if you're thinking about it? You're thinking in your mind. How do you
if you're
stop?
thinking in your mind, then read my book,
Yeah.
Quiet Mind, Epic Life, and begin to deactivate the drunk monkey and its arrogance. The drunk monkey is actually committed to being right about all
Mm-hmm.
the things it knows nothing about. And it leads to, so in our, for our ancestors, that particular evolutionary piece of software that we inherited, being right about things we know nothing about, that evolutionary piece of software was incredibly beneficial. But today, now it leads to trouble, because really, for the vast majority of people in a first world situation, like, what's going to kill you? What you eat and too much stress.
Yeah, yeah.
And both those things are in your control. And the stress is the big one.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking about it, you use the practices in the back of my book to start deactivating your addiction to thinking that you're right.
Mm-hmm. But the first step is to don't verbalize openly to anybody. Make any negative opinion, comment about any
Or
politician.
positive or negative.
Okay. Okay, great.
Just let it go. Like, the truth is, even your positive comments in the wrong environment are incredibly polarizing.
Sure. They are today, for sure.
The second step in the process is to stop giving your opinions on global issues, unless you're an expert, right? So if you're on a US government think tank about our relationship to Russia and you know, our the economic implications, well, yeah, actually we would like to hear from you. But I would say that, you know, 99.99999% of all people are not in that position.
Mm-hmm.
That's like 10 people, 20 people on the planet for the US. And so giving your opinion about that, one, only leads to conflict. Two, it probably doesn't make you appear to be that smart. And three, there's no actual, you don't get like positive results from it. Nothing positive comes out of it. So if you want to get involved, get involved.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not going to get involved, stop talking about it.
Right.
It's only diminishing your experience. So that's number two.
Okay.
Number three is to stop pretending like you're an authority on how life is supposed to be. You are literally making it up as you go. Your values and your morals are not your values and morals. You came in a certain way and you adopted a certain set of morals and values based on the way that you were raised. If you were raised somewhere else, you would believe something else. Your beliefs and your values are geography. They're not valid or valuable or real. In fact, ultimately, we take on so many of our parents' values and ideals about how life is supposed to be. And if you just step back and examine, your parents were just doing the best you can to not have living with you be such a nightmare.
Yeah.
So they did their best to get you to adopt their point of view, so it was easy for them to be around you. That's it.
Yeah.
And then, and do they think that it would make a better life for you? Yes, some did. But if you have conversations with parents, you'll find that there's not a lot of thinking going on for most people. They're in reaction. Having children is very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And it creates a lot of stress and a lot of reaction. So then the fourth thing is to practice accepting those things that you cannot change, and then to focus on what you can change. And that's not an easy thing to do, because what we would rather do is talk about how negative things are and complain about those things rather than do something about it. But the game really is to acknowledge that what you resist will persist and what you accept will transform. It starts with accepting. You accept those things that you cannot change. And then what you'll find is acceptance leads to awareness. Awareness makes you flexible. Flexibility reveals a whole new set of options, and options are really what give you power.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the four things that I would recommend people do for the next 30 days. If they want, they could also just go watch my TED Talk. And I did a full TED Talk on the opinion diet. And then I also created a little like 30-day plan, little 30-day workbook that they can download for free as well. So that if that is helpful. Some people appreciate that kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. So in the TED Talk, that's on YouTube?
That's on TED and that's on YouTube. Yes.
It is. Okay. It's on both. Okay. So we'll definitely post all those links. Um,
And then the 30-day opinion diet workbook is on my site, and I'll make sure to follow up and send that link for people to be able to download.
yeah, we'll include that as well so that people can access and find your info. All right, that's I may even purchase that today. It's just
There's nothing to purchase.
no.
This is my gift, my contribution to the
Oh,
planet.
oh
Yeah.
wow, awesome. Okay, well, I'm definitely going to get it today.
All right. Great.
So the first one is like, don't talk about. Is it just politicians or is it people in general? Because I
Well, yeah, I would say that that people in general is number three, which is stop pretending like you're an authority on how life is supposed to be. Stop
okay,
commenting on how people are behaving and what they're doing and how they're operating as if
okay,
you know better. And the truth is, each and every one of us is doing a combination of constructive behaviors and destructive behaviors. And if you look, you start to notice the number of constructive behaviors that we have is it typically in the minority, but they're so constructive and so powerful that they overcome the number of destructive attributes and activities that we're involved in. And
hmm
so most people are doing, I'm just going to make up a number. This is not something I've done a study on, but, let's call it 10 negative things to one positive thing in their life. But the one
hmm
positive thing is so powerful that it overcomes the 10 negative things.
yeah,
But when we're observing others, the drunk monkey in our head automatically sees the negatives because those negatives are threats. And so then we want to talk about it, and it's actually not constructive. So
hmm
stop pretending like you're an authority on how life is supposed to be. But
hmm
then going back to number one, we do the same thing with government officials. Like, we know who they are and how they operate. They're presenting to us a facade in order to get us to say yes to them. So
sure,
we don't actually have any idea who they are,
hmm yeah,
let
that's
alone who we don't even know who we are.
yeah, it is definitely an interesting world that we're currently living in. What do you say about the people that you know say they follow these processes? And you've worked with a lot of people, and I know a lot of people that have done a lot of work in their life too, and they get to a place where they do experience a lot of peace, a lot of joy. What they're doing is working for them, but then there's these times where there's an absolute relapse,
Yes.
and it sends them into a funk, and it could be for any length or period of time. But I've always been curious of the people who can really sustain that peaceful and joyous demeanor, and you see it on a regular basis. They're very, very consistent people. And then there's others that can reach those levels, that can experience the quietness and the calm, but then something happens or something gets thrown off. Sometimes it's not even explained what that is that throws it off. It just happens. You can feel it in your body, and then their center's off. Then they're off balance, and they're a little bit more snappy. So, Mike,
Yeah.
I've always wondered what the difference is with the people who can really apply this work and sustain a level of calm and peace, as opposed to the people that have experiences of it and then it comes and it goes.
Well, I've started the Center for Rapid Enlightenment to explore those kinds of questions and to come up with an evidence-based explanation. Right now, I can just give you my hypothesis and things that I will categorize as pre-search. So not research, but pre-search, contemplative work that I have tested in a non-scientific way with my clients. But I think there's a couple things. One, the person who is more consistent is only that. they're just more consistent. They're
Hmm.
not completely consistent. There's no such thing as completely consistent. There is variations that are happening. It's sometimes really subtle, sometimes more exaggerated. And so I think when we compare ourselves to others, we often look at that person who is able to, in many ways, present themselves in that calm and peaceful, joyous fashion, like they're good at that presentation. But when you get up close and you really dig in with them, you find that they're just like the rest of us.
Yeah.
And like you hang out with the Dalai Lama. I've never done that, but I'm just making this as metaphorically speaking. The Dalai Lama is really practiced, and I suspect that we wouldn't we wouldn't see him going through that emotional volatility that some of us other go through, but it's there. It's there for sure. And even though it might only be like 1% for 2 minutes in a day, right? But it's still there. So we
Hmm.
want to just recognize that it is practice. The body is a survival mechanism, and you're in survival when you have negative feelings. Like
Hmm.
negative feelings are essentially an indicator, like there's a threat present and you need to do something. You need to not be embarrassed. You need to make some more money. You need to show everybody how cool you are. Right, whatever our more modern version of threat state
Yeah.
is there. I would say that the people who are going into those big drops, there's likely a couple of different things that are occurring, and it's going to be different for everybody. But it's likely that a hidden motive was activated and they didn't notice. They didn't notice that suddenly grudge or traitor, right? Traitor is a big one, especially for people who are generally happy. That generally happy person begins to be invested in that identity. And suddenly,
That they feel like they're a traitor or somebody
yeah,
else around them.
yeah. So you could think of traitor like feeling like a fraud, or not
Okay.
really wanting to share with anybody what's actually happening for fear of some negative or a retribution or some consequence that you
That's
don't
that
want to deal with.
imposter kind of syndrome.
An imposter kind of thing. Exactly right.
Yeah.
But traitor manifests itself in our methodology. I think we've distinguished just a little over 100 different variations that it manifests itself as. And when that happens, all of a sudden, it's just like this little seed that starts to have gravity, and it just starts to build and build and build and build and build. And next thing you know, well-meaning, very practiced people like you or me go down, 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 down before we figure it out.
Uh, Matthew, that makes so much sense. That what you just said of like hitting on something that's deeper or unconscious that triggers and spirals us to kind of leave that peaceful, joyous place. But here's my thing, these things that are unconscious in us, and I think everybody struggles with things that are deeply unconscious. There's some shame, there's some guilt, some things that have happened to us. We all have been traumatized in some way or shape or form.
Yeah, trauma is
How
good,
do,
right? Trauma is how we have survived.
trauma, once you start doing a deep dive into it, it can help improve your life, but some trauma is really challenging for a lot of people to
Of course.
overcome, and it really,
I don't
people
mean to
struggle. So
diminish
my
I
question
don't
with these unconscious
Good.
elements,
Yeah.
what do we do to come to terms with those? What do we do to, so that, okay, really, I don't, I'm not a traitor, even though deep down, some reason, for some strange reason, ever since maybe I was a child, I feel like I've never been enough, or I feel like I'm covering up because
Right.
I don't want people to think I'm less than they are, or whatever that is that plays out. I'm maybe projecting here a little bit, but
No, it's good. It's good. Like I was the person that you were talking about, who had really mastered so many of the positive psychology techniques, and had done the meditative work, the mindfulness work. Like I'm the son of a personal development guru, right? So it's
yeah.
like you're drinking from the fire hose all the time.
Mhm.
And yet there would be these days, weeks, sometimes months of just downward spiral.
Yeah.
And at that time, my method, I had only developed the awareness of the drunk monkey and its unconscious reflexes. And so I could see the unconscious reflexes firing. I was aware of them, but it wasn't helping. So it's like my
Yeah.
awareness was not in that case leading to flexibility.
Right.
It wasn't revealing new options, and it wasn't giving me power. And
Hmm.
it was essentially utilizing the muscle testing methodology to investigate consciousness and start to discern, oh wow, there's this underlying layer of survival information called
Yeah.
the hidden motives to survive
Yeah.
that are actually the culprit here.
That are
And so
activating it. Yeah.
they're getting activated. So even though I too have experienced profound negative like feelings around traitor, like what you were describing, or victim, right? I'm not enough. I'm stupid. I don't
Yeah.
fit in. People don't love me, right?
Sure.
Those victim mindsets are like fundamentally empowering ways to operate if you're truly in a negative survival situation. So I wouldn't ask a person who is in a really, really negative survival situation to transcend those things. I would ask them to continue to use them to their advantage, because in those situations, for example, truth is dangerous. Keeping yourself hidden is a good idea. Being weak in order to inspire others to help you, very valuable. But that's
Hmm.
not you or I. But we have that code. We have, like, our ancestors utilized that information as a way in which to navigate and survive in their world. But today it's a mismatch for what we're experiencing. But all of us have it. We all
Yeah.
have we all have grudge. We
So
all
are you,
have victim.
yeah. So are you saying finding the strength in these hidden?
Finding the motivation, because the moment you realize what the motivation is the moment you have a spontaneous recontextualization. So the moment that I realize, oh wow, the purpose, like the goal of this biological directive for me to think of myself as not enough and not fitting in, like the objective here is to motivate me to fit in more, or find ways to contribute and be of service, or right, there's some motive in there that is having me participate more effectively with the other human beings around me to try and matter. And matter means staying alive. And matter means getting resources. And matter means fulfilling your biological directive of finding a mate and producing babies. Mattering is really, really important. And the crazy thing is, like, when your mind truly gets quiet, which is what happens when you follow my methodology, you have this incredible realization: I don't matter. Nothing I do matters. All of my helping isn't really mattering. My existence doesn't matter. My children don't matter. Nothing actually matters. Now, this is not a state of resignation. This is a state of incredible liberation, because
Yes.
the moment you realize that you don't matter and life doesn't matter, and that all mattering is just a feeble attempt at trying to sustain yourself longer, or win a mate, or be important so you get resources, the moment you realize that, you can choose what actually matters, which means you're now on the path for living a life of fulfillment.
Mm. That's good, Matthew.
It's really, really awesome. I highly recommend it.
The finding, I guess I like how you broke that down, and it's interesting that you can look at something that can be where you feel like you're not capable, and you feel like maybe you can't deliver like the others. Again, essentially, you just feel like you're not enough. But then you go into, what is the motivation of that? And I think if I heard you correctly, your idea is to really look at what the fear is around that, and go directly into the fear.
Fear is friggin' awesome, dude.
Is that
Fear,
what I'm hearing?
yeah, that's it. Like when you begin to acknowledge and appreciate how amazing fear is and all the various expressions of it, when you start to understand, like, whoa, why is that fear there? What is it doing? Like, what's its function in my
Yeah.
existence? Like, the moment you start to see that and have an appreciation for it, you're able to transcend it and to recontextualize it.
Yeah.
But when you are resisting the fear, it persists and it
Yes.
maintains itself. And it maintains itself because you're not allowing it. So understanding the 10 hidden motives, which are all essentially fears that we have, understanding and appreciating the 10 hidden motives deactivates the drunk monkey in your head. And suddenly you aren't burdened with unwanted, unnecessary lamenting insanity. It's really, really cool.
So
Highly, highly, highly recommended.
yeah, so they can either stop you, which I think they do for a lot of people,
Yeah.
or people can recognize there's an underlying motivation there. And it's really to not believe in this underlying motive that could potentially stop you from experiencing something amazing, and just do
Yeah.
it.
And not even not believe in it, actually really appreciate it. Really
Appreciate.
appreciate the maybe genetic. This is really for the center to do the science to understand, but maybe genetic, maybe cultural, maybe it is you come in with a predisposed aspect of consciousness, right? You're predisposed to certain things, and so you don't fight against it. You celebrate it. You celebrate how amazing it is that you have this system that has essentially allowed humans for hundreds of thousands of years to progress and become. And we're living in an exponential age. We're living in a time in which all the things, all the fears and frets and concerns that we had from the past, which were so important, are now becoming irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to celebrate them and come to a place of completion with them deactivates the thinking in your mind and opens you up for creativity and resourcefulness and thinking on purpose. Thinking is awesome,
Yeah, yeah.
but thinking without your permission is painful.
Yeah. Do you feel like anybody, no matter where they're at in their life, I mean, people that are um, been diagnosed with a variety of ailments, mental health ailments, do you believe that, and do you feel like anybody can start to apply this and recover from, let's say, like an anxiety disorder, or major depressive disorder, or bipolar disorder, which is highly diagnosed today? What's your thoughts on that?
I don't know. So I would say that a person who has been diagnosed with some sort of disorder should follow the best practices given by their doctor and probably, use some sort of medical aid like medication or whatever. Like it's not my zone. Uh,
Gotcha.
and then, and then if they have the chutzpah, if they've got the motivation and energy, which some will and some won't,
Yeah.
you take on a variety of other personal experiments. And what the rapid enlightenment process could be for that person is an experiment that they run where they
Mhm.
they essentially are testing to see, like, does this make a difference for me? And It might.
Yeah, yeah,
Do I know? No, I don't know. But it
yeah,
might make a
sure.
difference. And what there is to do is to be a scientist in your own life, to participate fully with your doctor in bringing your own holistic and personal plan together so that you can experience your own healing.
Hmm.
Putting your hands in the medical industries court, and that's it. Like, you guys are in charge of it. I would say for some people that's probably all they got.
Yeah.
They don't have that personal energy to invest. But for those who do, who are probably listening to you for that reason, because they actually do have that energy, then start running your own experiments.
I,
Start playing with all the different ideas that you're learning here from
yeah,
Ray, and put them into practice. See what happens.
yeah,
Test.
yeah. I love that. I think that's a really important in life, just for personal development and improvement, is to continuously look and explore and to dive into the newness of of any experience, because it just brings out so much. That's what's fascinating about life, I think, is just finding new way. And there's so many new ideas, and there's so many
Totally
new
agree.
processes that are they're evolving. I mean, things that I've been doing a lot of discussions on the psychedelic movement right now, and how that's improving and really opening up, people that have been suffering for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of interesting things that are happening right now.
It's so amazing. We are experiencing a renaissance of sorts
We are.
of well-being. And I will say that uh, it's valuable to celebrate all the negativity that is leading us there. And
Yeah.
that the
Wow.
way in which to experience incredible happiness and peace, one of the ways is to really celebrate the value and the importance of negativity. And the
Mhm.
more you can appreciate why negativity, the experience of negativity, the expression of negativity, why those things are so valuable to
Yeah.
humanity, or were valuable in a lot of places, they still are, right? If you live in a deeply impoverished place that
Yeah.
is filled with threats, then the utilization of negativity is paramount, right? It's like you've
Sure.
got to master it. But for people who are listening to a podcast on happiness and well-being, it's not likely that you're in that situation. So really celebrating negativity, understanding how important it has been for us, and really engaging it, man, that can make such a huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Yeah. Well, they say that suffering is necessary to evolve, and that's what we're talking about. Is there
Takes them
anything
both.
else, Matthew, that you'd like to share that we haven't covered about some of the areas on how you help people?
I think I would just say, I would encourage our listener to take on an opinion diet and, do it one day at a time. So my request is to do a 30-day opinion diet, but that's just a made up number. Uh,
Mm,
and all there is to do is to say, well, what if I just for the rest of the day I had no opinion on things? What would that do? Well, I wonder what that would be like. Experiment.
hmm.
The other thing that I would ask our listener to begin to consider is that acceptance is the key to your happiness. Practicing accepting things as they are, which doesn't mean you agree.
Yeah.
So there might be something extremely negative that happens in your work environment that has a negative consequence on many people in your environment. Fighting against that just means that it lives with you longer. That's called holding a grudge. And holding a grudge is an extremely valuable survival tactic, except something negative happening in your company is probably not a survival situation. So it
Hmm.
doesn't warrant that. Instead, you seek to understand the motivations behind why that thing occurred.
Mhm.
And you work to understand why it was right in the decision making of whoever it was that made that negative happen.
Mhm.
And then from that state of acceptance, then you get a whole new set of options that open up for you, a whole new set of feelings, and a sense of personal power. It's really positive. It's
Yeah.
worthwhile.
And
Practice
some
total and complete acceptance of all people in all situations at all times, including yourself. See what happens.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. And you can also, I think, what opens up for people at times when they do that is that the attachment to wanting that particular situation to change and alter to be the way that they want it to be is removed, and yet they can still, voice their opinion without that attachment, which is much more at a centered and peaceful place. Because I think I'm trying to help my son do that right now, is to speak his truth and his voice when he's experiencing fairness, but also to recognize that you might not get your way, and that's okay too.
And your son might begin to use the language from my perspective.
Yeah.
And if he adds in from my perspective, then people are more apt to listen and say, oh, that's interesting. From my perspective, it's this. And then all of a sudden, he's changed it from this is the way it is.
Right.
In other words, I am the ruler of the universe and all people
Yes.
should bow down to my infinite wisdom. Uh, he changes it from the drunk monkey to, a much more open and reasonable person who admits, I don't really know, but this is like what my preference is. I prefer this, and this is my perspective on the situation. And I think it might have these positives and these negatives. Now, all of a sudden, you create a much more holistic way of communicating that gets a lot more people to listen.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Well, Matthew Ferry, he is a spiritual teacher, the author of Quiet Mind, Epic Life, and the creator of the 30-day opinion diet and the Rapid Enlightenment process. Thank you so much for being a part of the podcast, Matthew. This has been a pleasure.
Really fun. Thanks for having me.